All right, everyone, it's 4 o'clock and we'll go ahead and call this workshop to order. In attendance, we have Ed, Bob, and myself. The first item that we're going to be discussing or presenting, it will be, are we going to move the stuff around, Chelsea? Do you want to? No? Okay, so the first item to discuss is going to be how to report, reporting tools for the residents.
So up first, we have Randy Paniagua, our contracts manager slash public information officer. So go ahead.
Okay. All right. I think I should be good to go. All right. So the presentation is reporting tools for residents. I'm Randy Paniagua, as she said, the contracts manager and public information officer. So nice to see so many familiar faces out here. So we'll get started. So first up, we'll talk about SeeClickFix, and this is a way to report issues to the district regarding the maintenance area within the district, and they are reported directly to us. So as you can see, there's the visual where you do the SeeClickFix. There's a pothole. You report it to us, it gets fixed. And this is a way to better assist residents and staff with issue reporting and tracking. And as a result of that, we've transitioned from emails. So a lot of you are familiar with customer care at gatewaydistrict.org. So any of the emails that get received through that inbox are then transferred into this reporting system. And then through your email, you'll get a dedicated ticket number. And then that way you're able to see the work that we've done with that ticket. The benefits of it is fast routing to the correct department. So with an email, it can get lost, as I say, lost in the sauce, going from peer to peer versus with SeeClickFix, it goes straight to the corresponding department. And again, transparency, residents can see what's going on, what's being worked on. You get alerts as soon as any of the departments make any comments on the issue that you reported. And then that's also linked to our work order system. So if anything related to the utility is reported, they're able to then make a work order and assign it to a staff member to go out there and look and address the issue. And you can access SeeClickFix online by visiting gatewaydistrict.org/RFA, which stands for Request for Action. Or you can download the app on your Apple device or your Android device. And it's really easy. You submit pictures, you toggle your location with a little pin, and then you receive updates. You can sign up for those updates. You can sign up and determine whether you want to be an anonymous person reporting it, so that way we don't see it, and you get all the updates, and then you can get to see to track the progress and receive notifications when things are resolved or whenever there's any updates. An important part of SeeClickFix right now, as of the last 2 months, is that you need to specify the correct agency when you're reporting something. And we'll talk about this a little bit with the next one, but there's several agencies that use it, but within the Fort Myers area, the city of Fort Myers is the one who just recently rolled out SeeClickFix. They call it Fix My Fort. I'm sure you guys saw it. They did a whole media rollout for it. So as you see, if you zoom in, Chelsea, there's different entities. And if you click anything within the city of Fort Myers, any subcategories, so for example, if you click the storm drain issue, we wouldn't get that notification. And if you're within one of the areas that we service for utilities, they would get that notification, we wouldn't get the notification. We've communicated with them to try to resolve the issue and sent them updated maps so that they could layer it onto their system. We have yet to report on any updates on their behalf. But like I said, the options there for the city of Fort Myers, and then if you zoom in again, you get to see that the gateway option is there, gateway services, or if you're in Pelican Preserve, we have a special subheading for Pelican Preserve. And this goes back to the making sure that you select the correct category. They have SeeClickFix, but they branded it as Fix My Fort, and it's an application that you can get through Apple and Android. Again, check the header. Make sure that the agency that you select is correct. That way, we actually get to see the concern that you're reporting. I think one of the issues that came to light was that they were reporting some things with residents were reporting issues related to the utility. And then we would get a call, and I had no idea what they were talking about because we didn't have a ticket that corresponded to that number. But then upon, knowing that SeeClickFix was also being used by the city of Fort Myers, we were able to locate exactly what they were talking about because it was a public-facing application. So we were able to see the report that they were reporting to the city of Fort Myers. And to reach us, you have various options. On the homepage, you see the SeeClickFix app icon that we have on the landing page. And then under Contact Us, you have 3 different options that appear. The first one is just making you aware that you can call us for emergencies related to the utility at all times. The second one is the SeeClickFix option, and it kind of gives you like a brief description. If you can zoom in a little more, Chelsea. For any non-emergencies or service requests, that's the best option. And then if you have any public records or any other public comment that you want us to relay to the board, then that would be your third option, and that would take you to the contact form. That's not synchronized with SeeClickFix. And then I think you're going to have to skip this next one. Yep, repeat. All right, so back to this one. Fix My Fort SeeClickFix app. It's the same thing. You don't have to download this, the Fix My Fort. If you download the SeeClickFix app, you get both of the entities within there. But they have their own standalone app, the City of Fort Myers, and you can go to their website as well to report it. And then again, the same features: submit photos, you add your location, and receive status updates. Okay, and then the next one we wanted to talk about.
Before you leave that, am I correct in saying that we're trying to work right now with City of Fort Myers, that we will redirect the ones that come to us in error, and we're trying to get them to reciprocate and direct to them?
I don't know that we've received any from the City of Fort Myers that correspond to them. But like I said, in like kind of looking at the maps and seeing the overlap, there were some that were corresponding to us that then we reached out to the City of Fort Myers.
But it's new for both governmental entities. Right. And we just happen to be launching at the same time.
If we get it, we relay it to them. I can't say, to Randy's point, that that's been reciprocated at this point, but we're trying to work through it like we suggested with the different layers. It's cumbersome, but like, typically old Pelican, you're over there, new Pelican, your gateway utility. So that's really the underlying thing, so.
Sorry to interrupt, Randy,
Yeah.
this is Cece from Casella. We had one rejected by the city.
Yeah, and that's something that we're working with the City of Fort Myers to fix that gap in communication. But transitioning over to the FPL street lighting reporting, the district, as you all know, I think you all will be receiving a notification from PPC, not PPCA, but from KW regarding the upcoming project that for Pelican, yep, that Patricia has been working on. So the district is transitioning from maintaining streetlights to FPL. So that's the electrical utility. The district will continue to pay for lighting, the lighting service, but the maintenance and repairs will be handled by FPL soon once all the work is completed, kind of like what we're doing on the gateway side of things. And then during the transition period, you can continue to report those issues to us. And then I would say that once they're live and there's a number associated with the pole, then we would notify the community so you could report those to FPL moving forward.
We're not contacting FPL direct.
Yes, you do.
That's what I thought.
Yes. Yeah. He's saying, because Pelican, just like when we were in the middle of our conversion, they didn't know if it was us or FPL. During that transition, contact us, but we'll send a notice out, everything's FPL. Like on our side, everything's FPL. Pelican will be there eventually, but right now they're not.
So if there's a street light in Gateway Greens, for example, that's out,
FPL.
we go to FPL.
Yes.
And they now all have the little black
Yes.
on the post. They put those in just within the last week or so.
Yes.
So we report that number to FPL
Yes.
and then set back and wait.
Yep.
Okay, because right now, there's like a half a dozen lights out on West Links Drive alone.
Yeah, I've got to follow up for project closeout with FPL.
And I just saw stakes in the ground on Pelican Reserve Boulevard. So I think that, it's like the
Start.
first step.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay.
Are they putting in new poles there?
Yes.
Yeah, we're not getting the same ones you have. We upgraded, we got the decorative
Are
poles.
you getting the underground wiring?
Everything
also?
new, everything new. Because we really needed that.
And then the tool that you can access through FPL, you go to fpl.com/streetlight, you enter the address or the poll number. I think, as Ed was saying, the poll numbers were recently installed, I think, in the Gateway area. And those are about like an inch. And I think it's like a black layering. And then if it's county maintained streetlight, I think it's blue. It's a vertical numbering system. So you mark it on the map and then you submit your report and you'll get any updates once they're performed by.
You can always just Google FPL street light out. That's what I do,
Yep.
if you don't remember the website.
We've got about half of our lights in Gateway Greens. We got about 100 that are ours, 100 that are FPLs. So we contact FPL and they tell us it's 45 days minimum to even come out and look at a light. Street lights is not a priority for them.
A little different than what we got when we were buying it.
Do what?
That's a little different timeline from when we were purchasing it.
Different story than we
Different
heard
story.
too, yeah.
30
Just-
days back before.
They don't care. And if the light runs all day, they don't care. And if it's dark all night, they don't care. They don't care.
All right, so yeah, response times do vary. And then the next tool that we wanted to talk about was the Lee County request for action. This is reporting for issues outside of Gateway's maintenance responsibility. So these are county roads, the traffic signals, signage, sidewalks that are maintained by the county. The form's really comprehensive. If you want to zoom in a little bit. Similar to what we had prior, where you kind of select the category, and similar to SeeClickFix, where you can add comments, location, you can drop your pin as well and add photos. And the hyperlink is a little clustered in there, but it's leecounty.com/DOT/request for action, or if you look up Lee County request for action, it's the first link that comes up. And like I said, if you see those street light poles that have the blue lighting in them, those are county-owned poles, or you'd have to report them to them.
You're driving down Daniels and you hit a big old pothole. They're on speed dial for me.
Or if it's Griffin Boulevard,
Griffin
Drive
Gateway.
and Gateway. Yep, all of those are the county.
The blue lights.
Yeah, I think that's something for the emergency vehicles, but it's a great question. I don't
Maybe
really
DOT
know.
related.
Basically, it is for, to notify, if a cop happens to be watching, he knows that the light has changed to red, and if somebody goes, they have to be watching. Somebody
Red
has-
light runners.
Oh,
Okay.
So if you see the blue, you ran it.
No, they constantly stay blue.
I'll have to look.
yeah.
Only when they're red.
Okay. All right. This is a great tool if you're anywhere throughout the county. This request for action.
Yeah, I actually used it this morning to report some streetlights that were out in front of my neighborhood, so.
This
yeah,
is different than
really easy.
SeeClickFix.
Yes.
Correct.
We
Two
had the
different
opportunity to
entities.
look at this one too and chose SeeClickFix.
I think it's a proprietary.
No, the county has their own GIS and they wrote their own GIS and their own system, like
Okay.
coding and things like that. Whereas we used an outside third-party platform.
So report that pothole that's just like right outside here on Griffin Drive.
Yeah.
You gotta go to this.
Yes.
Yep.
Anybody?
Yes, we did. We've 54 potholes is how many we reported a couple weeks ago.
All right, and then the other ones is FDOT reporting, and this is the Florida Department of Transportation. So if you're on State Road 82, I-75, or 41, you would use their reporting form. Like I said, it's a little lengthy, but if you look up FDOT reporting, and then they divide it by district, and we're in District 1. So once you select that, you click on General Inquiry, and then you're able to submit whatever report that you want to submit. So typically that's a pothole.
And like most
For me.
state agencies, they're a little slow on their responses. But there's been countless times where we've received complaints of overgrown grass along 82. And so we've put out a call to them and they come out and they'll come and mow it, so.
And then this was just a map that I found online that the county published. And the blue ones are county maintained. which is Griffin Drive, Gateway Boulevard.
Line?
Yep, Tree Line, Daniels, and then State Road 82, I-75 are state maintained. All right. Another big issue, mosquito control. The district, the Lee County Mosquito Control District handles that. So they're a different entity that does their own assessments or, for their services. And one of the things that I didn't know in just finding this is, and I think this is maybe something that the different mosquito districts do across the board, is they can inspect your property to see if there's any like areas that are of concern where mosquitoes can be breeding and growing, and they can address that at your property independent of like the aerial spraying. And then you can go to their website. They have a GIS form as well. And then they tend to publish where they intend to spray aerials of them. So if your area is going to be treated that day or that week, they post that on their Facebook page, and you're able to see, okay, well, that's why there's low-lying plains that are around the neighborhood. Okay, well, they're spraying. And then they have their contact form as well. That's all I have on that. And then another agency for reporting issues with waste collection is Lee County and Fort Myers, City of Fort Myers. If you live in Pelican Preserve, you're serviced by the City of Fort Myers. If you're an unincorporated Lee County, which would be the rest of Gateway, you're serviced by Lee County, and then they have that service contracted out to Waste Pro. And then there's a contact information for them for the City of Fort Myers. You could also do it through Fix My Fort or SeeClickFix, and just make sure that you select the correct agency so they can get that. leecounty.gov.com/solid waste or their phone number, and then Waste Pro USA, and then click the corresponding office.
So I know there's a lot of snowbirds that if you're from up north, the government, the townships or the government entities handle your waste. City of Fort Myers handles theirs, I believe, internally.
Yeah.
But because the county is so large, they've contracted that out through Waste Pro. I don't know how many times I've taken a phone call. Public Works, I'm here. What about, I need my garbage tote? Like, you gotta call Waste Pro. So.
Now, does Waste Pro do garbage and recycle, but do they do yard waste too? They do all three?
Yeah. Yes.
So, yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
When they want to.
Funny.
What do you say?
When they want to.
And then we have a little tutorial for the SeeClickFix, and we'll just play that. It just has text over it. You want to play that?
Viewing?
Do the attendees have access to these documents?
It's online. Yep.
It's online?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
A silent video, but it has text over it. So you open the app, download it, you search for it, you click on search for your city, then you select Gateway. But once the app is downloaded, then you click on the bottom where it says new request, and then you can submit whatever you want, whether it's a photo, use your camera. Whenever you take your daily stroll, you select the picture, you click next. And then you toggle the map. In that case, it was at the park, the dog park, and you get to zoom in to pinpoint the area. And then, like I was saying, make sure that the correct headings are chosen, so Gateway or GSCDD parks in this case. And then the subcategory that corresponds. And then the description of what the issue is. And then again, you're able to submit anonymously or have your information published out there. And then once that's done, you click on register the account, you put in all your information, and then you're able to see all the issues that are open. If you don't want to download the app, then you can go to the website, and then it's the same portal online, just through the website. And then I think we have 2 more slides. And then this one we get a call often, and this is for reporting nuisance alligators. To report aggressive or threatening alligators, you can do that through SeeClickFix to us. GSCDD coordinates with FWC licensed nuisance alligator trappers. FWC does not trap alligators under 4 feet. So trapped alligators are humanely removed. Normal sightings in ponds or canals do not need reporting. I think that's the typical call we get. It's just an alligator. It's in your backyard. As long as it's not disturbing anything or being a nuisance, then just let it be. Reporting through SeeClickFix ensures that the district receives and forwards your request to the FWC personnel, and then that way we can address it. And again, that's gatewaydistrict.org/RFA. And then the next one is going to be CROW, and that's the Clinic for, I think it's Rehabilitation of Wildlife.
Yep.
You report injured or found animals. If you're walking or within your community and you see an animal, typically it's like a bird that I've experienced, and then you can go to their website or give them a call, and they're able to coordinate with like their volunteers to either schedule a pickup or for you to drop them off at the clinic. Provides care and treatment for sick, injured, or orphaned wildlife. And then you submit the details, including the species, location, and condition of the animal, and then they're able to assist you.
So on the reporting injured wildlife, Blue Pearl right up the road is one of their locations that you can drop off injured animals. I actually had a little baby bunny in my yard the other day that was there for too long on its own, and I collected it and took it to Blue Pearl, and then they took it to CROW. So I know birds and things like that, that's kind of, concerning that you might not want to touch, but it is another great resource to call if you see a bird with fishing line around its mouth. Again, there are people that can help assist with that kind of stuff because we have quite a bit of wildlife out here. So, all right.
2 and 4-legged.
Yeah, 2 and 4-legged. Does anybody have any questions for Randy? I know it was a lot of information. It's all on our website, the PowerPoint, and all of the websites inside the PowerPoint. Yeah, go ahead.
Cane toads.
Oh.
You want to take this one? I think there's some products in the market that we've used for the dog park, but that's about all that we've done.
I think Pelican
There are trackers.
There are trappers, but the district's stance on that, if they're not damaging or disturbing our district property, again, we treated the dog park, but it is, those are hard to tackle right now.
Kind of like iguana.
Yeah.
If you have an infestation, it's up to that property owner or HOA rather than the third party.
I know that there was a gentleman over in, I think, Eagle Point that was tackling really his community and handling that, but that's been probably about a year or so ago, but. Yes.
Hundreds and
Yeah.
hundreds. Yeah, they come out, I guess, in the early evening, and he goes out after them. At least
Watch
our
your
out there,
dogs.
too.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just to add to that, cane toads are so, there are fishing.
Yeah.
I mean, during the breeding season, along one of the lakes, here it changed. I mean, really quite loud.
Mhm.
I stayed that way for 2 or 3 months.
Yeah, we did look into what potential things we could spray that in our ponds to try to help alleviate that, but I think these are so new to our area that, I mean, at the time it came back, we couldn't find, like, there was nothing,
Treatment, yeah.
that there were no treatments really available for the water side of it. But if something does come out, we'll absolutely keep an eye on it. Or if you hear of something, please let us know.
Do they have a predator?
Humans. I'm sure. I've seen the gator and the pond behind my office had a fish this big the other day, so I'm sure they would go for the cane toads too. So, any other
Is
questions?
this presentation available? Because this is the time of the year when our snowbirds come back and we have community meetings.
Yeah.
This would be a perfect
Yep. Absolutely.
application for that. They just contact you, Randy, for this?
Yes, or it's on the website under the
President's Council meeting.
President's Council
Agenda,
meeting.
today's agenda.
But if you can't find it, just give us a request for action and then I can give it to you as well.
Do a C-click fix.
Yeah,
Use it.
yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Anybody have any other questions? Okay, moving on. Thank you, Randy. Flavia had to step out. She had a emergency at her community gate that nobody could get into, so she'll be back. All right, next, Paul Flores.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Paul Flores. I'm the Public Works Director. So today I'm just going to provide you just a brief presentation, and we'll provide you with a status of our landscape irrigation system retrofit project. We'll also go over some of the current challenges and some of the benefits that we're going to gain once this project is fully implemented. This project started off September of last year. Currently today, we irrigate about 47 acres of existing areas, and this is predominantly on the right-of-way and common areas within Gateway Services. Our current system has aged. We're 38 years old is the current age of the system. I wish I could say I'm that young, but it's 38 years is quite some time. So, but the challenges with our system is that we have 9 existing controllers, and none of which communicate with one another, and they require battery replacements, which is kind of a manual process for us. They also don't provide flow data, pressure information, nor rainfall accumulation, which would be very useful when you have an irrigation system. So the key objectives that we're hoping to achieve here is that once we implement the project, and most likely in phases, we'll be able to promote water conservation and ultimately automate our entire irrigation system. This project will align with our coverage areas and based upon our plant needs and also our soil conditions that we have here in Gateway Services.
Can I ask a question? When you say Gateway Services, I mean, we have Gateway Irrigation, certain neighborhoods at Pelican Preserve.
That's a good question. Gateway Services provide you with the water, but we do not manage the actual irrigation system.
You don't distribute it.
Right.
You don't manage the
Not in your neighborhood.
No. If you go back, Chelsea, if you see that map, and it's hard to see, can you kind of zoom into that? This is the areas highlighted by the rectangular squares of what we're talking about as far as the scope and the limits of this particular
It's our
project.
common area.
Yes, it's all common area along the right of way.
Main boulevards.
Yes, main boulevards. So thank you.
Yep.
So RWA Engineering was selected and has been retained to do a comprehensive automated system, irrigation system that can be programmed and controlled just from one point. And even to the point where we just a handheld device, which currently we do not have that functionality. From 9 controllers, we're going to go down to 4. And that's going to be a tremendous benefit for our system here. The scope of work is just to identify and improve our irrigation system design and centralize the system into one. It'll also include controllers, wiring, piping, control valves along the right-of-ways and common areas. A key benefit is that we'll be able to gain information to adjust irrigation based upon rainfall and shut off our system in case there's a high usage or a potential leak in our system. So far, we've achieved a 30% and 60% design that has been presented to the board. It's been reviewed. We've incorporated their input, and so that's where we're at today. And so if you go to the next slide. So for the next step is that we're getting close to a 90% design, which is currently in progress. We anticipate that to probably receive those 90% plans by the beginning of next year, and our hope is to try to present this to the board at the earliest February, but depending on the schedule. And finally, as the outcome, the ultimate goal of this project is to, achieve, and we are expanding our area coverage from 47 acres. We'll ultimately achieve 65 acres of coverage for irrigating our right-of-ways and common areas. Ultimately, we're going to modernize our irrigation system, conserve water, reduce our maintenance costs, which is something that we're looking forward to, and continue with the aesthetics and beautification of our premier community. Are there any questions? Very good. Thank you.
All right.
I might just ask update. One of the things that we're looking at long-term is that a lot of people don't understand we have a contract with the county and we have to use every drop of water. Unlike up north where you got a creek or a river to throw the water in, we don't have that. So we have to use that water. For years, people have always asked me here in Gateway, why are you watering the blacktop in the middle of the night on the roads? Well, we have to get rid of water. When these tanks are over here full and nobody's turning on a valve, we have to use that irrigation system to get rid of the water. One of the new components we've got is to be able to take that out up into the FPL easement and put that water up there when we have to get rid of it and we don't have any place to put it and nobody's buying it. So we have any update when that one of the ones on the grant?
That's the grant.
That's the
Yeah.
grant.
And to follow up on this irrigation system replacement, we applied for a grant for that one as well, which is kind of what may drive the phasing of it, depending on how much money, if any, we get from that grant. So a lot of these projects are either in queue or in design, waiting, or just sitting there on a shelf waiting for those grant proceeds to come through. So this one is truly exciting because most of Griffin does not have irrigation on the right-of-way right now. And so we'll be able to bring the rest of Griffin and increase those enhancements to make it match the rest of the community, which right now I think is just mostly Bahia out there.
It's all Bahia, and there is no irrigation on Griffin at all besides the flower bed drip lines.
Yeah, so. That's
One of the lessons learned in Pelican, of course, we have a staining problem. I don't know if we've got that over here or not. But in certain areas where we have monuments, we don't have pop-ups anymore. Now we have a
Drip.
bleed system, a drip system. So is that part of the consideration?
Yes, absolutely. And I did fail to forget to include that or make that statement that a part of this design is the safety factor, which is to minimize and prevent any water going into the hard tops or the roadways and preventing any sort of accidents and the waste of water as well. So that is a part of this project. So we hope to address all those issues.
What are we running? We still running close to 50-50 groundwater and wastewater?
40, 60 at best.
40.
60 at best. The 40 as well, wastewater?
Wastewater. Yeah.
So we're taking more water out of the ground than we're taking
So-
out of the wastewater treatment
So
plant.
that drives back to the conservation efforts, and the less we can waste, the better.
And then the other one is, have we gotten any indication from the county or South Florida Water Management District that there's going to be rationing again this year?
Every year, they've adopted it as part of their ordinance, and every year it's going to occur until they change their ordinance.
Okay, so what does that start, January 1?
February 1 to
May 30th? May
May
30th?
31, yep, May 30.
Do we supply the golf course for irrigation?
The golf course
Of course, Gateways
pulls
is
from
out
the
of the lake.
ponds. The golf course pulls from the ponds.
Okay, that's what Pelican does, it pulls the pond.
No other questions for Paul?
Thanks, Paul.
All right, thank you. Last but not least, Mr. Manoli.
Hi, I'm Austin Manoli, Assistant Utilities Manager, and my presentation is going to be covering various wastewater system odor control techniques and technologies, along with kind of why it becomes an issue. So as far as what we're looking at for compounds that cause the issues, so you've got basically, it's just a general rule, they're volatile, small organic molecules. So things like volatile fatty acids, which are formed by breakdown of, larger, generally fats and greases. That's part of why what they call FOG control, fats, oils, and grease control is so important in wastewater systems. If you do any reading on the subject, that's something that's a real concern. That's part of it. You have your volatile sulfur compounds, also called reduced sulfur compounds. These are typically formed from degradation of certain amino acids, so the building blocks of proteins. Some of them contain, or sulfur, containing, particularly methionine and cysteine, and under certain circumstances, they're also metabolized for energy by certain species of microorganisms. I can't remember off the top of my head which ones. And then you have small volatile amines, which are organic molecules that contain nitrogen. So those are just some examples. You have things like the methyl dientriamine are typically formed through protein breakdown, sort of like with the more general like VSCs, like methylmercaptan. They tend to have a fishy odor. So volatile fatty acids, they kind of smell rancid. Sulfur compounds smell like rotten eggs. Amines either smell fishy, if you're looking at like the smaller kind of like methyl, monomethyl, dimethyl, and trimethylamine. Putrescine and cadaverine are, well, you can guess what those smell like based on the name.
So by raise of hand, have any of you ever gone by like a lift station and you got a whiff of something and you're like, oh, what is that? What Austin just explained, those different types are these different types of molecules that are coming from that. So that is important if you call and report a smell to try to describe it, because that's going to be able to tell us what one of these is the issue.
And then the big one you see that you hear a lot about in the literature on the subject is hydrogen sulfide. So that one, apart from smelling like rotten eggs, also is of particular interest for utilities because it causes operations and maintenance issues. It's highly corrosive. So next slide. So as far as what causes, as a general rule, what causes all these compounds to form is you have these various microbial processes going on in the wastewater. So the wastewater, when it's added in, it does have some dissolved oxygen in it, but that's consumed extremely quickly, just because, you have such a huge microbial loading into your wastewater system, along with just a massive loading of various other, organic molecules, but also other nutrients like nitrogen and sulfur. So what happens is once that oxygen gets consumed, you'll have basically bacteria that respire using compounds other than oxygen will start to dominate, and they'll produce all these byproducts that cause, odor complaints or maintenance issues. And then this can also be compounded by certain physical elements and properties in the collection system. So you have increased residence time. Like I have some pictures later on in the presentation of some manholes, which are located downstream of these force main connections that flow into the gravity system. That's why you tend to see like these, you'll see there like rust around them. That's why that rust forms, because you have this prolonged residence time in this highly anaerobic environment. And there's temperature. Temperature is generally an accelerant to biological activity, and also leads to gaseous compounds like hydrogen sulfide more readily coming out of solution and being detectable. I was still on the last slide, actually. And then turbulence is another one. So mechanical agitation causes a phenomenon called gas stripping. So just the fact of physically, manipulating a mixture that contains something like hydrogen sulfide can cause that to come out of, sewage, which is where it's not really as much of a problem to us, and become a gas, which is when it becomes, you can smell it and it gets absorbed onto the surfaces of the wastewater system and causes corrosion issues. And then also heavy grease buildup is another one that can contribute to this. It creates barriers to diffusion and creates more strongly anaerobic environments. and just traps and generates and just enables these compounds to get concentrated, so that when they are released, they're much more intense. So next slide. And this is kind of like at a really high level why that phenomenon, why you see this sort of generation of these odor-causing compounds. So this was pulled from a paper on soil microbiology, but some of this general stuff, still applies. Yeah. But they, happens is drives down what's called the redox potential in the environment. That basically opens up new pathways to, or it basically makes it so that certain species of bacteria can start metabolizing alternative energy sources other than oxygen. So like in wastewater, what you'll see is as your redox potential drops, you can start, metabolizing nitrate to produce nitrogen, or under certain conditions, ammonia. And then as it drops farther and farther, as your, environment becomes more and more anaerobic, then you start metabolizing sulfate. And that's what creates hydrogen sulfide. Next slide. So kind of just getting into the whole microbiological aspect in more detail. Wastewater, it's a soup of microorganisms and other organic compounds. A lot of them are free floating in the actual wastewater itself, but eventually what will happen over time is they'll accumulate on the surfaces, such as like in the sludge at the bottom of a pipe, or on the exposed surfaces of a pipe, or whatever, any other surface in there. And the form is called a biofilm. It's basically how microorganisms tend to occur in nature. They'll form this like multi-species colony of like all these different microorganisms suspended in basically like an extracellular matrix, composed of sugars, fats, proteins, and even DNA and RNA and that sort of thing, which are genetic material. So one common phenomenon you'll see just sort of in that picture is these biomes will themselves stratify. So you'll have at the top of it, you'll have an aerobic zone where your aerobic microorganisms predominate, those are the ones that will consume all the oxygen. And then as you go down, deeper and deeper into the biofilm, the microorganisms that predominate tend to be more and more anaerobic. And then look at that anaerobic zone, like the second one from the bottom, that's where you'll see sulfate reduction occur. And then those are just some, it's not an exhaustive list, but some of the various genuses of bacteria that can conduct sulfate reduction. And they're called sulfate reducing bacteria, and they produce hydrogen sulfide. So it's driven by the presence of organic molecules and readily available sulfite in wastewater. Like I said previously, occurs in very strongly reducing environments, and then driven by sulfate reducing bacteria through a process called dissimilatory sulfate reduction, which basically just means that when they metabolize sulfate, it gets excreted as waste product as opposed to an assimilatory sulfate reduction where it gets incorporated into organic sulfur-containing compounds. Next slide. And that's basically just what the general biochemical pathway for how sulfate reduction occurs. Specifically, this is what I believe it's from bacteria called Desulfovibrio vulgaris, which is the best characterized sulfate-reducing bacteria. So the sulfate is absorbed into the cell, bacterial cell, has to be converted first because the actual one of the interesting things about sulfate metabolism is that the metabolism of the sulfate ion itself isn't necessarily favorable in its just, raw form. So it has to be attached, bound to something else, which is what that compound APS is. It's adenosine 5 phosphosulfate. Try 5 times fast. It's then reduced to carve off a sulfate ion. That sulfate ion is actually what gets metabolized intracellularly, basically inside the bacteria's cytosol into hydrogen sulfide. So hydrogen sulfide, when it's produced in organisms that undergo dissimilatory sulfate reduction, it eventually is excreted as a waste product because it would if it were retained in the cell, it would adversely affect the cell's homeostatic equilibrium because it become too acidic. So they just have to just dump it out into the environment. And that creates the whole, as it's dumped out, it's dissolved in the water, but eventually, as the concentration of the hydrogen sulfide in water, dissolved in water rises, eventually it'll just spontaneously come out of solution under normal circumstances. There are various environmental factors that can affect that. The hydrogen sulfide, once it's emitted, it's highly corrosive. Just on its own, it readily dissociates. You can kind of see that chemical reaction equilibrium, number 2 on there. When it dissolves back into water, it tends to dissociate just on its own. It's acidic. But it also, when it comes out of solution, it can be metabolized further by aerobic bacteria called sulfur oxidizing bacteria back into sulfuric acid, which is very... next slide, please.
You want me to go get the sample so they can smell it? I'm just kidding.
So as far as things we've observed about hydrogen sulfide is that it exhibits a very strong daily variation. You can kind of see there's spikes. So it starts spiking in the morning and then kind of peaks during the day. And then so these are collected by a data logger that we have. The companies that design these systems, they'll come out and drop data loggers in lift stations. Usually that's what this is from. This is from that lift station out on the corner at Gateway Boulevard and Girl Scout Lane. They'll drop a data logger in there that measures hydrogen sulfide. That's how they size the odor control units that we install there. But you can see it's got that sort of like periodic variation. Can you zoom in on that a bit? You'll see it kind of like spikes those spikes are basically, start in the morning, continue, during the day, and then as it, nighttime falls, the dissolved, concentration of hydrogen sulfide in the headspace in the lift station declines. And that's just to be expected because, well, one, stations run less overnight, so there's not as much turbulence. And then there's not as much material, highly anaerobic wastewater being pumped into them. It's becoming anaerobic, and then in the morning it gets pumped in, which is why you see the spikes.
So to give you some examples, right, statistics, numbers, data, it means everything in our utility world. We just upsized a lift station in Stony Brook, but we went through this whole process. We actually had a resident who lived nearby, and we asked him, anytime that you smell something atrocious, please email us. And correlation, of course, guess what time it peaked? When everybody was at home getting ready to go to school and go to work. And then it declined, and then guess what time it peaked again? Everybody got home from work and they're starting to cook. So we saw that go up and down, and so we had to adjust our odor control unit accordingly.
So just some pictures showing what this hydrogen sulfide exposure can do. So the one on the left is actually from one of the lift station control panels. The one at, I think that's from Girl Scout Lane lift station. That one, the sewer gas is so strong, it broke through the seals. There's a little like seal off sealing all the ducts that connect the control panel to the wet well. Degraded that and got into the panel. You can see there's, the plastic on the terminal blocks is kind of starting to deteriorate, and you also got like corrosion on all the terminal, like, metal parts of the electrical terminals. Just a mess. You'll also see this occasionally, particularly downstream of force main to gravity main connections.
How many of you have seen this in your road?
This one's from Pareto, kind of like just by the roundabout.
Okay, good. Don't look down at those. Just keep driving.
Don't drop anything and pick it up if it lands there either.
Yeah, we will be planning on replacing those eventually. And the next one's the worst. That's the one right by
Gateway Greens entrance.
Yeah, we actually had to beat that one loose with a hammer because we got rust welded in place.
Sewer put force main.
That's only been in.
So we have an interest to try to solve the whole issue with hydrogen sulfide, formation and accumulation too, because it causes issues like that. And the way we do it is through, well, there's generally two ways you can do it. And typically they're both done at lift stations. You have chemical treatment methods, which that's a list of like the most common ones. You can enrich wastewater typically with nitrate, mostly just to keep that whole thing with like sulfate reduction occurs when the redox potential drops. Well, if you add nitrate back in, you can keep it from dropping to that point. That's basically the whole point behind nitrate enrichment. Typically, it's added in the form of something like ferric nitrate, which is nitrate bonded with iron. That has a double effect of iron reacts with sulfides to form iron sulfide, which just falls out of solution. It's not gas, it's solid. So it basically just eliminates the problem too. You're attacking it from two directions. You can add hydrogen peroxide or other reactive oxygen species. I guess I probably should have added other strong oxidizing agents too. Basically, all these compounds, be they hydrogen sulfide, other reduced sulfur compounds. Yeah, that's one too you can use because it's a very strong oxidizer. But yeah, you add these, compounds basically just to reoxidize them into forms that are not malodorous. And also absorption with activated carbon. Very effective and typically employed as kind of like a secondary, downstream stage just to absorb like surges and particularly like sulfur compounds. And also, about that actually. And then biological treatment methods, which are typically what we use at all our lift stations. You have biofilters, which basically just rely on, I guess, go back. Say on that slide, they all basically rely on bacteria to treat the waste products that are produced by, sulfate reducing bacteria. And the difference between them is how they basically pass the contaminated air through the media. Biofilters are basically completely passive, so they have very low O&M costs because they don't have any like any blowers or any other real air moving equipment in them, but they have a very large footprint. You have bioscrubbers where the contaminated air is passed over like a liquid medium, and the contaminants are absorbed into the liquid. And biotrickling filters, which I believe are what most of ours are their media with a biofilm growing on them. and the air is just passed through that. It's forcibly blown through that. Next slide, please. As far as just continuing on that, like I said, most of the odor control units we use are biotrickling filters. I believe they're all dual stage. Most of them have an activated carbon, what they call a polisher. So basically, it's a filter that absorbs hard to oxidize compounds and surges in compounds that would normally be reduced. The recent upgrades that we've gone through, we've recently upgraded the Stony Brook odor control unit at the master lift station. That was replaced in July 2025. That's a picture of it. And as far as planned upgrades to our control systems, we have, we're working on getting a new unit size for the Girl Scout Lane lift station, because that one out there is currently undersized. So, but yeah, we're currently getting a size and gathering proposals for that. And that concludes my.
Anybody have any questions? Oh man, you got the most questions.
Go first.
Wingfield Code. Curious that the waste treatment plant that we have here right now.
Yeah.
That what?
It's owned by Lee County. I think that plant is designed for 4 million, I believe 4 million gallons per day, and we're feeding about 1.5 million into it.
There's plenty of capacity left.
Yeah.
Last I heard, it was, the main components is 6 MGD, and it's running at about 2.5 MGD. Of course, a lot of water comes in from outside of Gateway.
Second question is, correct me if I'm wrong, the lift stations are they?
It depends on if they're stations that have a bunch of satellite stations, so stations that pump into them. That newly installed ones, I believe, under DEP's rule, required to have a backup, either power source or backup pump installed at them. Yeah. Yeah. We're basically require them, typically a backup bypass pump to be installed at all new lift stations in our system.
How are they energized? They're energized by.
They're all,
How do you keep the lift stations actually operating?
they're all diesel powered. We had stocks here. Now we have much larger stockpiles here ever since we got the generator. We have a 3,500 gallon or 4,500 gallon tank, actually, excuse me. Tank of diesel fuel sitting back there we can draw from. Typically the fuel consumption on those bypass pumps isn't that actually all that high. We fill them up with any time we get a, there might be a storm coming through. Sure they're topped off and full.
Sorry, on apartment complex with 500 units in it.
256, but yeah.
Yeah. Are they required to put a new lift station
Yeah.
to go ahead and accommodate this?
If they can't gravity flow.
Yes, they have to meet our gateway, our gateway standard, which includes everything like that Austin just mentioned, those pumps and everything. And you'll see it being installed at the corner up there at Commerce. But yes, they have to meet our gateway standard.
That one does not. Wire and go ahead and handle the voltage. Yeah.
Barry, you had a question?
Yes, you talked a lot about hydrogen sulfide.
Yeah.
I don't want to scare anybody, but hydrogen sulfide,
For
assuming the
concentrations.
levels generated by wastewater are, what are those concentrations relative to what's dangerous to people?
They're significantly lower. I can't remember the concentration at which hydrogen sulfide becomes dangerous to human health. Typically, secure about that is usually people go, jump down in a confined space. Hydrogen sulfide's heavier in air, so pools and low. It's detectable at far, far lower concentrations than it's lethal at. I think it's like on the order. I can't remember the concentration that's lethal at.
We have a H2S meter that before we go into any manholes, you always have a backup for going into a manhole confined space entry, but there's a device, a monitor that you can drop down into the manhole, and it'll send off a signal or a noise, and it'll let you know. But you got to watch it because you can get into pockets of it, and it'll kill you immediately.
Yeah, that's why I mentioned.
Very dangerous.
In higher concentrations, it can kill somebody pretty. One of the bad things about it is when also deadens your sense of smell, so that as it gets higher, you can't tell.
That is not, it's a real safety hazard. Also be explosive at higher concentrations.
Anything else, Perry?
That's all.
Cece, you had something? Any other questions for Austin? Okay.
Thank you, Austin.
All right, we have a couple, I think now part of the agenda, Flavia, I think we have open for public discussion. I do have two papers.
Sure.
Wayne, do you want to come up? And it's regarding parking.
As I mentioned, I'm the president of Waterford Village, and we rewrote our documents back in 2003. And basically, our parking restrictions, probably like most of you, that we don't allow commercial vehicles, and we had a size limit on the vehicles that are allowed in the neighborhood that's limited to 3/4 ton, and no work vehicles. And our definition of a commercial vehicle, if you got a pickup truck with ladders and all these different things on it, that is a commercial vehicle by our definition. Then in 2004, as everybody knows, House Bill came out with 1203 that basically is mandating that HOAs cannot enforce our parking or commercial parking and parking boats and a number of different things. There's a lot of things that changed, and each association is a little bit differently. The way we have been handling this right now is that we have consulted with our attorney, and we happen to be in a very difficult situation with one or two customers or members in our community that are insisting that 1203 applies to our organization, whereas our attorney is saying that no, that really is not the case, and there's a couple of different reasons why, and I'm not an attorney to go ahead and start giving you some background on that. But I'm just wondering how many other homeowners associations and how are you dealing with work vehicles? Are you allowing those work vehicles now to come into your subdivisions per July of 2004, the 1203 mandate?
So
2004.
I think-
2004.
24.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no, I'm
so-
sorry, 24.
Yeah.
My mistake.
24 is
Yeah,
when that
Yeah,
big
that's
deal
what I-
hit.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so-
that hit everybody.
And again, our documents were wrote in 23, accepted by all the members, and then in 24, that's when the state came out in July of 24, saying that 1203.
Yeah, I'm good with
Get into
this
some
one.
definitions that you really need an attorney, because we had this nightmare at Gateway Greens with the issues of what's commercial. And I believe commercial is defined as a weight limit, 20,000 pounds,
26,000
I believe.
pounds, yep.
And if you're under that, you're up the creek without a paddle as far as stopping owners or residents from coming in and doing it. Now, you can stop them on the street, because that gets into another issue.
Well,
Fire department, fire access, and that type of stuff. But if they want to park in their driveway, not much you can do about it.
Yeah, and I believe they must be they must be members. The statute is very clear on that. So they must be members of the association, the vehicle must be registered and must be their personal vehicle equally. So let's see, if John has a commercial vehicle and also has a Nissan, that does not apply to him. It would only apply if he only had a commercial vehicle, a pickup truck, that is all the lettering is under the ton, but he uses that as his personal vehicle. He is a member of this, so not a renter, a member of the HOA, and that's the only vehicle he realizes. So there is like it's just not really clear. There's a little bit more than that.
Definitely work with
It's
an
throughout the
attorney.
definition of commercial vehicle, because that's 26,000 plus pounds, and typically that can't fit in
Or-
somebody's driveway.
Yeah, or
So-
a vehicle that's wrapped. So a commercial vehicle, it's that, or it could be a Nissan Sentra that is fully wrapped. So it's not just that.
Well, there's some language that several communities in Florida that are already challenging this, is that they're looking at that our agreement with our members are simply that a contract between us and the members, and that the state of Florida's new law came out in July of 24, does not apply to those that are wrote prior to July of 24. So it hasn't actually been tested yet, but
I
again,
haven't heard of that.
well,
Have you?
you could do.
Yeah, once
yeah.
they change it, we're kind of, our hands are tied in the
Yeah.
HOA level, yeah.
Somebody really got mad at HOAs in 2024. A lot of these things that are protective rights of associations pretty well get dissolved real quick like.
And I just see a hands that how many HOAs are actually enforcing or keeping work vehicles, I'm saying work vehicles, work trucks, out of your subdivision? No, that doesn't apply to those, clearly that somebody comes in for a short period of time and they're working less than 12 hours, and they're having to be parked in the street or the driveway, they're allowed to go ahead and be there. But being parked overnight now, there's a big difference between if your home or if your HOA has a private road like ours happens to be, that we have a lot more control on what we can say, that what can be parked in the road or not. Those subdivisions that are public roads really they fall into Florida law, and there's a whole different scheme of things that apply there. But what I'm referring to right now is that the individual that has the vehicle that is wrapped or has ladders on it, has, you can see, obviously, he's a plumber, he's a contractor of some sorts. Previously, you would tell them that, no, you can't park your vehicle here, but as of July 24, that you now are allowing them to be there. Are you still holding to your covenants or your restrictions?
We are, I'm from Cypress K. That are, time.
You are allowing them to do that?
Yeah.
Okay, I get, my question was, who is enforcing your documents and not allowing these individuals to
We're going
park?
by what the 2024 rule said that you have to allow it.
Yeah.
Well,
There's
also
a-
too, if you read the law,
there-
that they have
this
what
is
they
not the
call the
meeting for this.
Kaufman language. The Kaufman language basically says that if to be allowed or amended time by time, I can't remember exactly what it is, but the Kaufman language would say that your documents would be amended as Florida statutes changes. And if you don't have the Kaufman languages, you don't have to follow it. If, also too, if you have.
But they can't, so here's, I don't think necessarily this is the meaning for this, to give it some, the guidance that you're looking for. But anytime there is a conflict between the two documents, there's an artery of how you go. So articles of incorporation, bylaws, declaration, and Florida statute. So no HOA can create a rule and enforce a rule that is more strict than 720. So 720 is going to govern that. So if your HOA documents will say nobody can have X palm tree, but 720 does not cover that, then you cannot enforce something. Does that make sense? Your attorney should have explained that to you. So there's if anytime, and it usually is the last 2 pages of your documents, you'll say if there's any conflict between the two documents, here's the order how they go. So article of incorporation, bylaw, declarations, and on top of that, 720. So none of those below can be stricter or harsher than 720. Does that make sense? That usually it's in every single document, the last 2 pages will say that.
Well, I know there's different opinions as to how 720 applies, and I know what 720 does for us and what it doesn't do for us. But again, when we had our documents rewrote by our attorney and accepted by our members, it had those covenants built into it. Everybody agreed to it at that time before the new rules came out. And our attorney has given us advice that we are in good standings, that we can go ahead and deny that particular situation. And in our particular case, not because of the Kaufman language, but as for we have a contractual arrangement, and the state of Florida cannot assume or trample our contractual relationships that we have with our members. And there's several articles that are out there right now, and as far as I know, it has not actually been tested in front of a district court, or certainly has not been in front of the Florida Supreme Court. That's where I think it's going. So
We just changed, redid our covenants, declaration, bylaws, everything. We've been trying it for about 10 years. Well, we finally got it accomplished, and right in the middle of our change, we got the 2024 deals, and we beat those to death in public meetings with people. And our deal is that we're just not going to fight it, not going to fight it.
Well, clearly, if you have new documents that were wrote after July of 24, you are stuck with the language that is outlined in 1203. Anything prior to that, and that's where the argument is, and you can go ahead and go to several different attorneys that are looking at, okay, or we're going to fight it. Now, the thing is, we're a small association. We have only 109 members. So, probably within the next couple of weeks, I think I might have a member suing us, and we're going to decide where we're going to have our directors and officers liability insurance go ahead and help defend our situation and go ahead and try to make some precedents in law. Or are we going to go ahead and just say, no, once you open that door and say, we're going to allow work vehicles in our subdivision, then you're going to have taxi cabs, you could have tow trucks, you could have all kinds of different vehicles parking in your nice neighborhood. And what I know, when I bought my house, I didn't want that next door to me. If I wanted that, I'd be living in a different place, So anyway, I was just curious on how.
And I'll just, again, I think this is great that we can kind of talk about it, but each of our communities have such a difference in documents, and so we can take this on the side note and talk about that. But I think our hands are tied, and given that I'm super involved with the HOA, and I know Ed is as well.
Wayne, I think there's some great resources here in the room that perhaps you could talk offline with them and just kind of pick their brains.
Yeah, I was just seeing if anybody is already having the same problems and if they're fighting it right now.
I'm just waiting to see what the idiots up there do next. I mean,
Give them a chance. They're not going to stop.
Change.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much. Sorry.
Who do we have?
I have Maxine. Regarding a disabled car.
Maxine Hansen from Trentino Estates over in Pelican. I'm actually here today to help represent Cindy Melanoni. She is the president of Trieste. She has the issue, and ironically, it's about parking. She has a gentleman on her street who has two vehicles. One of the vehicles is a SUV that has not moved in 2 years. Occasionally, the tires go flat, and so the truck is listed, and then the guy will go out with it after a week or two and put air on the tires. We went through the declarations for Pelican, and it says the owner can park their cars in the driveway, and it doesn't say anything about disabled vehicles, or if a car is not moved in 2 years.
Yeah, it doesn't say operable, because usually
usually,
they have the word operable.
Yeah.
And then also, if that's, it is in the driveway or is it on the road?
It's in the driveway.
Okay, so usually the documents, they have the word
vehicles.
operable. It's a very common use, and operable will be if it doesn't have a license plate, or if it has, if you can't drive it, that you can call code enforcement, and that's who will address it. So you would have called City of Fort Myers Code Enforcement, and they will address it regardless if it's in the driveway or not.
You in an HOA or a COA?
HOA.
HOA.
And Trentino Estates, we drive down Trieste, and the car is there, and many of my neighbors are saying, can't you do, I said, it's not in my subdivision. I understand. We did bring it up at a president's consult and was told, according to the declarations, he could park both his cars in the driveway. It's just that one is disabled.
Is this one of our roads, or is this one of the roads? This
It's
is
a Pelican
Gate
Pres-
CDD road?
No.
It's in
But
Pelican.
it's in the driveway, so
Maxi-
your best solution is contact code enforcement. And I would contact code enforcement when the tire's flat, because that's the only time they're gonna do
Are you
it.
talking about the city of Fort Myers?
Yes, so code enforcement, so if, I would have looked to see if it has a tag, if the tag is registered with the correct year, so you could have a tag, but if it says 2023, so you know it's expired. So that alone is considered an inoperable vehicle
We've done that
for
several
the
times.
DMV, so they will issue him a
So I
citation.
will tell you though, whoever reports it,
Yeah.
you cannot be anonymous in code enforcement, so they will know who reported it.
Right. And the problem is Cindy, who's the president, is I think this gentleman's neighbor. So makes it a little stickier. But
Contact code enforcement.
let me ask you this. I asked KW Property Management if they couldn't just send him a letter saying that the neighbors were complaining and they're upset about, his disabled vehicle. And they wouldn't do that. I said, well, you're not really, what are you doing? You're just kind of giving them a letter because I figured
name of your community?
it's a way to bluff.
Pelican, Trieste.
You're not,
Yes.
you're not,
I just want to look at the documents really fast, because I find it very difficult that you don't have the word operating in there, because that's something very basic. Trieste, that's the name.
Yes.
So they're your property manager for your HOA?
okay.
Okay, and they report to your board?
All right, well, we'll try that.
That's not HOA, that's the community
Yeah, I
association.
know, but I can.
I'm
pull- I-
Fred.
Yeah, I can pull up
Different.
on the county, their documents, and I
I
can
was-
just,
Oh,
yeah,
Cindy,
I figured out.
have them send a letter? Yeah. All right, well, I just thought it was ironic that all the topics today are on parking.
I have Stony Brook parking issues.
We're out of that business. I have no additional notes. Is there anything else the group would like to bring up, or anybody have anything else they'd like to contribute? All right, well, I appreciate everybody's time, and thanks for coming in, and hopefully you learned something.
Thank you all.
And it's been one of the best attendance at these meetings
Agreed.
that we've had in a while.
All right,
It is appreciated.
all right.